1 hour and 39 minutes. That's how much more time the average American adult spends at home every single day compared to 20 years ago. Not per week, per day. That number comes from Princeton University. Sociologist Patrick Sharkey tracked the whole country's daily habits from 2003 to 2022. And the line only goes one direction, up. More time at home, every age group, every background. And if you're retired, you're leading the charge. I'm Frank, by the way, and what I'm seeing is something nobody's really talking about. You're being told by your kids, by magazines, by every retirement YouTube channel that you need to get out more, travel, join clubs, stay active. And look, there's a reason they say that, but nobody's stopping to ask the real question. Why does staying home feel so good in the first place? Because until you understand the actual answer, you're stuck between two bad feelings. Guilt when you stay in, dread when you go out. And that's no way to spend the years you worked your whole life to earn. So what is actually happening inside your head? Because this isn't laziness. It's not depression. For most of you, it's something far more interesting than that. I pulled data from the Transamerica Institute's survey of nearly 2,700 retirees. I read through hundreds of posts from retired people on forums where they talk to each other honestly, not to a camera, not for likes, to each other. I cross-checked the numbers from AARP, from the University of Colorado Boulder, from Princeton, and a pattern showed up that none of these sources noticed on their own, because they were all looking at different pieces. But when you put them together, a story forms. And it goes like this. For 30, 40, maybe 45 years, your time belonged to other people. Your boss, your clients, your kids' school schedule. The alarm clock owned your mornings. Traffic owned your evenings. And somewhere in the middle, you paid a mortgage on a house you barely got to sit in. One woman on a retirement forum put it perfectly. She said, and this is a direct quote, "When I was working, it seemed like I only used my house to bathe, sleep, and rush through cooking. Relaxing at home felt like fleeting moments where I was paying for a house I couldn't fully enjoy." That's not one person's experience. That came up over and over again. The feeling that home was a place you passed through, not a place you lived in. So when retirement hits, something shifts. You're not just staying home, you're reclaiming a space that was never really yours during your working years. Your brain registers this. It reads the lack of an alarm clock, the absence of a commute, the freedom to eat lunch at 2 p.m. if you want, and it translates all of that into one signal: safety, control. This is mine now. A retired man on the r/over60 forum, someone who traveled to 46 countries for work, wrote that people think something is wrong with him because he has zero desire to travel anymore. His words, "It's been there, saw that for me. I like staying in my home and my city. 46 countries, and the couch won." But it didn't win because the couch is better than Italy. It won because for the first time in his life, sitting on that couch was his decision. And that changes everything about how it feels. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because the reason home feels so good is the same reason it can start to shrink your world without you noticing. Your brain runs on a reward system. When you do something and it feels good, your brain takes a note. Do that again. When you wake up with no obligations, make your coffee on your own schedule, sit in your favorite chair and read for 2 hours, that loop fires. Comfort, reward, repeat. And here's what makes retirement different from, say, a long vacation. On vacation, you know it ends, so the comfort doesn't become the default. But in retirement, every day can be the same shape. And when every day is the same shape, your brain stops needing to prepare for anything new. It gets efficient. It says, we know what today looks like. No threats, no surprises, stand down. That feels like peace. And for a lot of you, genuinely, it is peace. The Transamerica survey of nearly 2,700 retirees found that 89% consider themselves happy. 44% said their enjoyment of life actually went up after they stopped working. You are not broken. You are not sad. You are, by the numbers, some of the most content people in the country. But, and this is the part that matters, a woman on the r/aging forum posted something 3 days ago that stopped me cold. She'd been through a long stretch of social isolation in her 50s due to health problems. She adapted. She learned to fill time alone. She got comfortable. And then, when her health improved and she wanted to go out again, she couldn't do it easily. Her ability to handle the outside world had, in her word, atrophied, like a muscle she stopped using. Her exact advice?
A lot of what makes a task seem easy or doable is familiarity and routine. The less going out is familiar and routine for you, the more energy it takes to do it. And as you get older, the less you'll want to.
Read that again. She's describing a loop that feeds itself. You stay in because going out takes energy, and going out takes energy because you stay in. That's not depression. That's a habit becoming a cage, so slowly you don't hear the door close. So the question becomes, where's the line? When does I love my home become I can't leave my home? This story has a turning point, and you already know what it is. Professor Jessica Finlay at the University of Colorado Boulder surveyed almost 7,000 adults aged 55 and older across all 50 states. She's been tracking them since 2020, and the numbers tell a clear story. 59% spend more time at home than before the pandemic. 75% eat out less. 62% visit museums, theaters, or cultural places less. 53% attend religious services less. But here's what makes this different from a simple people got scared and stayed in. Many of these people aren't scared anymore. The virus didn't keep them home. The habit did. The pandemic lasted long enough to rewire the daily pattern. You learned to order groceries online. You learned that you didn't actually need to go to that store. You discovered that the things you thought required leaving, entertainment, shopping, even some socializing, could happen from the couch. One commenter put it this way: that year of being shut-ins taught my husband and me to adapt. We loved it. Another said, since the pandemic, I don't like going anywhere. These aren't complaints. These are people who found something during lockdown that they didn't expect to find. Permission. Permission to stop pretending they wanted to be out in the first place. And this connects back to the Princeton data. Patrick Sharkey's research showed that the trend of Americans spending more time at home started long before COVID. The pandemic didn't create homebodies. It just gave homebodies the cover to stop apologizing for it. The problem is, it also gave a push to people who probably shouldn't have stopped going out. People who needed that church group, that weekly lunch, that reason to put on shoes. And both groups look exactly the same from the outside. So how do you tell which one you are? There was a thread on the r/retirement forum. A retired woman in Minneapolis. She babysits her grandson twice a week, goes to restaurants 2 or 3 times a week, has lunch with friends regularly, family events a couple times a month. On paper, she's doing everything right. But she posted asking for help because on the days when nothing was on the calendar, when there was no appointment, no event, no reason to leave, she felt, in her words, like a useless schlub. 257 people responded, and the responses split into 2 camps. Camp 1 said, you worked your whole life. You're allowed to stay in for weeks if you want. Camp 2 said, get a gym membership, volunteer, get a dog. You need a reason to leave. And both camps were completely right, for completely different people. So here is the test, and it's simpler than any survey. Ask yourself one question. Not, am I going out enough? Not, what would other people think? Just this. When a friend calls and invites you to lunch next Tuesday, what's your gut reaction? If the answer is, that sounds nice, but I'd rather stay home, that's a preference. You're fine, you're choosing. But if the answer is, oh no, I have to go somewhere, I have to get ready, I have to be there at a certain time, that's going to ruin my whole day, that's not a preference anymore. That's your world shrinking. And the difference between those 2 reactions is the difference between someone who loves their home and someone whose home has become the only place that feels manageable. A retired lawyer, 77 years old, asked this question on a forum better than I ever could. He said, is this craving for comfort and home and lack of schedule the beginning of an irreversible decline? A sort of going gentle into that good night? He exercised twice a week. He was physically healthy. But he noticed that the energy required to do anything outside his house was growing. Not because his body was weaker, because the muscle of going out was losing strength from lack of use. Now, there's a group of you watching this who have been nodding along thinking, this isn't a retirement problem, Frank. I've been like this my whole life. You're the introverts. And retirement might actually be the thing you were built for. A writer on the Humble Dollar Financial Forum made the argument that introverts have a quiet edge in retirement. They recharge through solitude, so they have a never-ending fuel source. They tend to spend less money because their favorite activities don't require a restaurant or a plane ticket. They're less affected by social pressure to buy things, and they don't need a packed social calendar to feel like their day had meaning. And there's real data to back up the happiness piece. That Transamerica survey, 89% of retirees are happy. That number doesn't care whether you went to a dinner party this week or stayed home doing a jigsaw puzzle with a cup of tea. But even if you're an introvert, even if staying home is genuinely your preference and not a trap, there's one thing you cannot get from inside your house. And it's the thing that every piece of research on aging agrees is the single strongest predictor of how long you live and how well you live. Professor Finley's words from her study of 7,000 older adults. Having a greater number of different social ties has been linked to living longer and living healthier. Not deep ties, not best friends, just ties. The cashier you chat with, the neighbor you wave to, the person at the gym whose name you don't even know, but whose face you recognize. Those count. And you lose them, all of them, when the only door you walk through is your own. AARP has been asking the same question for over a decade. Do you want to stay in your home as you age? And for over a decade, 3 out of 4 adults over 50 say yes. That number doesn't move. It doesn't budge. 75% of you want to stay right where you are. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. You paid for that house. You raised your kids in that house. Your books are in that house. Your bed is in that house. And your coffee tastes better in that kitchen than it does anywhere else on earth. And I understand that. But here's what I need you to hold on to. The retired man sitting in Sorrento, Italy, one of the most beautiful coastlines on the planet, secretly counting the days until he could go home, he's fine. He knows who he is. The woman in Minneapolis, who felt like a useless schlub on a Tuesday with nothing scheduled, then looked at her calendar and realized she'd been active 18 days that month. She's fine. She just couldn't see it. The 77-year-old former lawyer who wonders if his love of home is going gentle into that good night, he's asking the right question. And asking it, noticing it, is the thing that keeps the door unlocked. You don't have to leave your house every day. You just have to make sure you still can. If you got any value from this video, hit the like and subscribe button below. This helps more people like you discover and also learn from it as well. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video.